Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. It's time for a good old-fashioned screen repair. So this one's in pretty bad shape, and the laptop itself is pretty filthy as well. So screen repairs are kind of boring. I've done a lot of them, but you know, this was a good example. And also, this is another example on how, you know, like this laptop looks, a lot of people would say this thing is about ready to throw out, and sure, it's a HP, but, you know, give this thing a new screen and clean up, and it will look really nice again. And a lot of what I try to convey to my customers when they come in with really sorry-looking laptops is that just a bit of a service and a bit of love, and they will feel so much better about the computer. You know, just because it all looks grossy and horrible, they're like, oh, it's no good, it's slow, it needs throwing out. It's like, no, just give it some love and a good service and it will be fine. So let's get started on this one. So as you can see, I've just used a Stanley blade just to pry off those screw covers and take the screws out. And now on this particular laptop, because the screen doesn't duck down right behind the body of the laptop, I can just pull the bezel off now. So I'm going to get my fingernails behind there and just start pulling. And if I come up against resistance, we turn the laptop around and we go to somewhere else. Let's give you guys a better view. So I'm just gonna go around the side here and just pull. And if it's not moving, we try somewhere else. And we keep going until we get a run going. There we go. And then if we need a bit of help, we grab a prying tool and we just give that a bit of a tweak. We just go both directions, we just see what direction works. And that's working very well. Just watching out, because there will be some wires around the top, so we just got to watch out that we don't maul those as we're taking the bezel off. And again, you know, don't be afraid to turn the laptop around. Make sure you're not working at a weird angle. It's a very common mistake that I see students doing, where they'll start, you know, they'll have the laptop like this and they're doing this and bending over it, and it's like, dude, just turn it around. You're allowed to move the laptop. And they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. What's that? Is that a clip? Nope, that's just glue. Right, and then finally, this annoying bottom bit, I'm just gonna gently wiggle it until it comes off. There we go, there's a click, and again, I'm just give it a wiggle. No, okay. If it's not wanting to go, we're just gonna close the lid, and let's drop that battery out as well to give myself a bit more clearance. And then we'll just pry along the bottom of the display assembly there. There it goes. And then that will now just sort of work its way out. Let's open that as wide as it will go. There we go. One bezel. Right, okay, so now we need to take this display, this LCD panel out, and we can check what connector is on it. So there are two main types of LCD. There is what I call a framed LCD, and then there is the Razor panel. So this is a Razor panel. The framed LCD is very distinctive because it has a big silver frame around the edge of it, like this one, whereas the Razor panel does not, which we'll see in a moment when I take it out. So the Razor panels are a lot easier to deal with. They just have 4 screws on them, 1 in each corner. And when you take those out, the panel just comes out the front of the display assembly. Whereas the framed panels are screwed in on the sides, down the side of the panel. So you have to you usually have to take the back cover off and stuff like that, and it's a bit awkward. So that should now flip out. Let's just get my nails behind that. There we go, that'll do. Okay, so on this dude we have a 40-pin connector. Now the other variation that we will commonly see is the 30-pin connector, which looks exactly the same except it's a little bit shorter. So if you don't want to count pins, but you do have a ruler to hand, you will find that the 40-pin connector is 25mm wide, And the 30-pin connector, I believe, is 20mm wide, if my memory serves me. So it's about that long. So it looks noticeably shorter. So yes. Okay, so I need a 40-pin connector Razor LCD with no frame on it. And then we can get rid of this very busted piece of equipment. Boo hiss, the only one I've got in stock is a 30-pin connector. That connector's too narrow. However, just for posterity, yes, I was right, it's 20mm. Right, okay, let me have a look around, see if I've got anything else. Alright, one new panel. So this guy is just going to plug in, and then we can screw him into the display assembly again. Right, now I've just put 2 retaining screws in the top of the LCD just so it doesn't fall out. And now we're going to plug this thing in and just do a quick power on test just to make sure that everything is okay. So let's grab the HP charger again, and we'll just make sure that we get a picture just so we don't spend 20 minutes putting the whole thing back together only to find that it doesn't work. There we go, that's fine. I've just spammed escape to get to a boot menu, and as you can see we've got startup check in the bottom left, and there we go, that's good enough for me. We have a nice clear picture. So we'll power that off again, and now we'll go ahead and reassemble it. Now this is where we start seeing the problems. This particular laptop, being a HP, has really naff hinges, and unfortunately, although nothing here is broken, I can already see the early onset of failure. We have a look at this screw hole here. You can already see the cracks around there. That screw hole is basically worthless. That plastic there, that's all going to be sort of coming loose. If it's not cracked all the way to the back, it's at least weakened. And if I actually do this up properly, that's just going to break. So that's this one rendered already useless. If that happens underneath these screws, then this whole hinge will break, and then we've got to rebuild the display assembly again. So that's kind of the problem with HPs, and it's one of the several reasons why I don't like HPs and why I tell people not to buy them. But unfortunately, HP are still considered a trusted brand, so you know, there it is. So now this laptop isn't in to have this work fixed on it, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the display panel back out, and I'm just going to try an experiment on this one. I'm going to put some CS glue down the back of those hinges there, just to try and just weld everything in place. So when I screw it back together again, it's just got as much chance as possible of not breaking up. And hopefully this may just last a little bit longer. I mean, inevitably those are going to break. It's going to happen at this point, I think. But, you know, we'll do what we can to just delay that as long as possible. So let's just see how well this goes. So I'm literally just going to grab my CS glue and just dribble that down the back. And now we'll grab a pin and just push that down. No idea if this is going to achieve anything at all. It's just an attempt to try and prevent this from moving. Because that metal, you want that to stick to the back plastic, and you want no movement there at all. There's no need for any of this to come apart unless it's broken. So, and when it does break, the whole thing will need to be rebuilt anyway. So, and I'm just going to rinse and repeat on the other side. Yeah, so this is completely loose, this is. That's worthless. I don't know if we're going to achieve anything by that, but we'll try it. The laptop will go back together again because these 2 screws on each side seem to be intact, or at the very least I'm not undoing them to find out. The fact that I can even open and close this lid means that those should be okay, but yeah, we'll see. I think it's probably not going to be long before I see this laptop again with broken hinges, I suspect. What a bummer. Right, I've left that for 15 minutes or so just to quote unquote set. It'll obviously take a lot longer than that for the glue to dry completely, but that's enough for me to carry on reassembling this thing. So we'll just run a toothbrush across all of that just to brush any gunk out the way. We'll clean all this up properly in a moment once we've gotten the front bezels back on. Right, that's going to go like that. Right, where did I put? There's my panel. So let's screw this in for reals now. And before I put the front bezel on, I'm just going to have a quick feel of these screws. I'm just going to tweak them up just a little bit. It's impossible to tell if these are damaged behind or not, but if they're damaged, then they're going to break soon anyway. If they're not damaged, then just tightening them up slightly should help them grip on and hold on that little bit longer. Because it's these screws working themselves loose is what leads to the failure. But it's a mixture of things. The screws become loose after a while, but also the screws are able to become loose because it's all just plastic screwed into plastic. And there's very little metal in these hinge designs, which just means that everything flexes and bends and comes loose, and just there's nothing that you can do about it, to be honest. I mean, if you wanted to, if you have one of these laptops, you could religiously take it apart and keep tightening those screws every now and then. I don't know, every 6 months or something, but personally I just buy a laptop that doesn't break in the first place. Right, okay, these two screws can go back in now. Right, so that is our display assembly done. So now this thing just needs a good thorough clean. So what are we going to do about that? This is so dirty that I'm actually going to go over it with just a damp cloth first, just to get the worst of the grit and horridness off of it, because otherwise that's just going to clog up all my cleaning cloths. So we'll get the worst of it off just with a very damp J cloth, and then once that's done, we'll then start going over it with microfiber cloths and some glass cleaner to just get out the grime and the caked on stuff. Alright, so damp dishcloth. I'm being super gentle with this. I just want to take off the surface dirt, basically. And I'm not really rubbing, I'm just wiping down, because if I rub, then I'm just going to squeeze water out of the cloth into the laptop, which I don't want to do. So we're literally just very, very light pressure wiping across just to get the worst of the muck off of it. And as you can see, I'm not leaving any water residue on the keyboard here. If I start seeing droplets, that means that there's too much water on the cloth or I'm pressing too hard. And I'm just going to do the same thing on these plastics here. Not worried about leaving marks on our nice new LCD. We'll wipe that down again in just a moment. Okay. And before I go at it with the toothbrush next, I'm going to get my air compressor and just blow the worst of the crud out of the keyboard. Okay, right. You can see the air compressor's done a huge amount of work for me there. Our keyboard looking significantly nicer already. So there's a little bit more to do there. So let's just rearrange and just get the worst of that out. Old stickers like this usually take several attempts to remove, so as you can see, I'm just spraying a bit of alcohol on it, wiping it down, and then rinsing and repeating. There we go. I'm not going to remove all the stickers from this thing. Those are his stickers. However, I will make it clean where I can. Not that I have to, I don't know why I do it, to be honest. Whatever. Oof. Right, let's get all the bottom vents. You should be able to see through those holes. Okay, you can't see that very well, but those are a lot clearer than they were before. And of course, I've gone around the speaker grills and I've blown out all the airways for the exhaust fan, etc., etc. So that whole thing is a lot happier than it was before. Right, I think we're all done here. I'm going to move on to servicing this bad boy. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now. Uh-oh, may have spoken too soon. I just went to turn it on to begin servicing, and we have no picture on the screen. However, we do have a picture on the screen. We've just got no backlight. So, we've got to figure that out now. So the chances are this is down to the display cable not quite being in properly. And it probably got knocked loose when I put the panel in the second time. Because if you'll reckon back, I installed the panel, I tested it, and then I took it out again to glue those stupid hinges. So that's probably when it happened. So I'm going to quickly take this bezel off and check that cable. And if we just plug that cable back in again, the chances are it's going to work. So I will see you guys after the super fast forwardy bit. There we go, we now have a backlight, and Windows 7, gross. Fine, okay, so now we can move on to servicing. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I will see you all next time. Goodbye for now.